I operate a 180-acre ranch just outside the city limits, a place with a view so beautiful it could make postcard photographers jealous, and soil rich enough that if I ever planted money trees, they might actually grow. My longhorn cattle are fatter than your uncle after Thanksgiving dinner. I keep 24 prized Andalusian horses, and the barn alone is worth more than the house belonging to the HOA president. The ranch runs like a finely tuned machine, far smoother than any HOA meeting ever could, thanks to something they rarely understand: real management skills. I pay my taxes and repair my own fences, and I don't owe anyone a single dime. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're here for some premium HOA drama. Everything standing here was built with my own sweat and hard work, and at no point has my property ever been under HOA authority. That's because this land existed 30 years before the HOA was even formed. While they were still debating what color their mailboxes should be, I was already writing fence lines, branding calves, and installing smart irrigation systems that made their tiny xeriscaped lawns look like forgotten back alleys. My ranch doesn't even fall within the borders they pretend exist. Legally, geographically, and even spiritually, I'm far outside their territory. But just because I'm not part of their little cardboard kingdom doesn't mean I live peacefully. Not even close. They can't stand seeing me succeed without their rulebooks, approval stickers, and dull newsletters. A few of the older HOA residents used to wave politely when they drove past. Some of them even bought beef from me from time to time. But recently, ever since the subdivision farther up the road expanded and their board became hungrier for control, I began noticing longer looks, slower drives past my entrance gate, and quiet conversations that carried the scent of trouble. Even so, I stayed focused on my work. My boots remained muddy and I kept my head down. The cattle were happy, the crops stayed healthy, and the ranch income arrived every month like clockwork. Best of all, not one HOA rule applied to me. I had my own well for water, a private electrical hookup, and even my own trash haul. I was completely self-reliant, an outlaw in the eyes of their tidy suburban empire, and that fact irritated them deeply. But as long as they remained on their side of the property line, it didn't bother me. Unfortunately, they had no intention of staying there forever, especially after she stepped into power. The HOA board recently went through a small shake-up. The previous president, Dave, was the type who knew how to mind his own business and sometimes stopped by my roadside stand to buy eggs. He eventually stepped down. Maybe he got tired of the job. Maybe he realized trying to control HOA residents was like trying to herd drunk raccoons while holding clipboards. Whatever the reason, he stepped aside, and the woman who replaced him arrived like she was campaigning to become a dictator. Her name was Karen. Blonde bob haircut, tight yoga pants, aviator sunglasses even indoors, and a voice sharp enough to strip paint off a barn wall. The first time she showed up at my ranch, she didn't even bother with a proper introduction. She pulled up in her shiny white Escalade and parked it halfway across my gravel driveway. Then she stepped out like she was auditioning for some cheap reality show, waving a clipboard around. "Hello, I'm the new HOA president, and I just wanted to stop by and deliver your overdue balance." She said it sweetly, like she was doing me a favor. I leaned against my fence, folded my arms, and stared right back at her. "I think you've got the wrong ranch." Karen narrowed her eyes at me as she had just caught the smell of manure. "This is 4327 Lariat Ridge, correct?" "That's right." "Then you're behind on 3 months of HOA dues, plus fines for non-compliant fencing, oversized vehicle storage, and unauthorized livestock." I blinked. "Ma'am, I'm not in your HOA, never have been. Your boundary ends at least 2 miles before my property begins." She laughed, a sharp, incredulous laugh, as I just told her the cows were about to hold a town hall. "Oh, sweetheart, that's an outdated map. The HOA recently voted to expand. Now we cover all properties along Lariat Ridge." I let out a slow, deep chuckle. "Karen, your HOA can vote to annex Mars if it pleases you. My land isn't up for grabs. You've got zero jurisdiction here." Her smile faltered like a cell phone signal in a thunderstorm. "If you refuse to comply, we'll take enforcement action," she warned. "Go ahead," I said, tipping my hat, "and I'll see you in court." Step 1 inch onto my land without legal authority and you're trespassing. She stomped off, muttering something about compliance procedures. I thought that would be the end of it. It was. Not by a long shot. The next morning I was jolted awake by one of my ranch hands shouting. I ran outside, expecting a calf had gotten loose. Nope. Karen had escalated. My property was plastered with fluorescent orange stickers. My mailbox looked like a warning beacon. My trucks were tagged with bright red notices. Final warning, power cut scheduled. Pay your dues or face legal consequences. I tore one off a windshield and squinted at the seal. Lariat Ridge, Hawaii Enforcement Department. Fake, obviously, but convincing if you didn't know better. Which I did. This wasn't petty anymore. It was personal. Karen had officially fired the first shot. My ranch hands clustered around, staring like a Western standoff was about to erupt. I handed out box cutters. Strip every last sticker, I said. Leave none. By sundown, we'd removed everyone from power poles to my dog's kennel. I even found one taped inside the chicken coop on a feeder. The audacity. The next day, she escalated further, bigger stickers, laminated signs. She even hired someone to sneak onto my back fence to staple notices. Non-compliant property, pending utility termination. I caught the guy mid-staple. He tripped over himself explaining that she claimed legal authority. I let him go with a warning, but Karen had officially crossed into criminal territory. That afternoon, I called my lawyer. You've got grounds for a harassment suit, he said. Multiple, in fact, and if she attempts to cut your utilities, that's attempted sabotage. Document everything. I started snapping photos, logging security footage, and documenting every sign. I even kept the stickers in a shoe box labeled Karen's crimes. Then came the next letter, a printed legal-looking notice shoved under my gate accusing me of theft of utilities. Game on. Court day arrived like a brewing thunderstorm. Karen showed up in a white power suit, as if headed to the Oscars, not a small claims hearing. In one hand, a stack of fake invoices, on her face, a smug smirk. Her HOA entourage whispered and giggled behind her like this was a school play. I walked in wearing boots and a clean button-up, armed with a thick binder labeled evidence of delusion. When the judge asked Karen to present her complaint, she launched into a dramatic monologue. Your Honor, the defendant has refused to pay 3 months of homeowner dues, has livestock in violation of our community code, and has repeatedly disrespected the authority of Lariat Ridge HOA. The judge tilted his glasses. And you claim this property is part of your HOA? Yes, we voted to expand the boundaries to include his land, Karen said, grinning. Did the county approve this expansion? The judge asked, slowly this time. Karen faltered, whispered something to her lawyer, who turned visibly pale. I slid over my binder with a stamped map, showing my land clearly outside HOA jurisdiction. I added dated photos, a video of her hired helper stapling notices, security footage of sticker placement, and a signed affidavit from the power company confirming she filed a fraudulent complaint. Karen tried to object. The judge cut her off. Ma'am, you have trespassed, harassed, submitted false documents, and threatened illegal utility termination on property you have no legal authority over. Your claims are dismissed. Additionally, you are liable for civil penalties, she gasped. You owe him nothing. In fact, you now owe damages for harassment, defamation, and attempted utility interference. Amount, $275,000, payable in 30 days. I also suggest preparing for potential criminal charges. Her face went from smug to shattered porcelain. The HOA board members shrank in their seats. Karen's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. She had finally met a wall that paperwork couldn't bulldoze. The end.